The alarm was still ringing in my ears long after it had gone silent. A high-pitched whine, buried under the roar of the wind and the crack of ice splitting under pressure. I coughed out snow, spat blood, and clawed my way out of what was left of the shuttle's side hatch. Cold hit me like a wall, unrelenting, violent, alive. Snowflakes weren't falling. They were stabbing. Sharp, icy blades slicing across my exposed skin as I struggled to stand. The storm had torn through us before we even had a chance to deploy our equipment. Aegis 9 was supposed to be quiet. Routine, a polar atmospheric survey. Maybe a 2-day mission. What none of us saw coming was the ion storm freak weather they said couldn't touch this hemisphere. They were wrong. Half the crew didn't even make it to the surface. The rest of us had been scattered like broken toys. My fingers were going numb when I saw her, a shadow slumped in the snow, half covered by a growing drift. I stumbled forward, legs barely working. The wind howled louder, as if it wanted to drown her completely. Closer now, I could see the shimmer of her skin silvery blue, marked with cuts and flecks of ice. Zyra, the alien diplomat. She had barely spoken a word on the flight, always poised, always distant. Now her long frame was crumpled, one arm clutching her side where dark blue blood soaked through her uniform. Zyra! I dropped to my knees beside her. She blinked, slowly, her pupils narrow slits in wide violet eyes. She tried to speak, but the wind stole her voice. I didn't wait. I scooped her up, surprised at how light she was, and staggered toward the black rock formation I had passed minutes earlier. It wasn't much, but there was a shallow crease, a crack just wide enough to slide into. Inside the crevice, it was barely warmer, but at least the wind couldn't reach us. I laid her down gently, checked her pulse weak but steady. She was trembling violently. Her lips were nearly blue. "We need heat," I muttered, pulling off my jacket and draping it over her. "Body heat is all we've got." Her eyes widened. She flinched. "That's indecent," she whispered through chattering teeth. I stared at her, furious at the thought of losing anyone else. "We'll both be dead in 20 minutes if we don't. I'm not dying today." She didn't resist when I pulled her close. Her body was colder than I expected, like holding a frozen pipe. I wrapped my arms around her from behind, pulling her back to my chest, tucking my chin near her shoulder. She didn't move. Her breathing was shallow but began to slow. My hands gripped her arms tightly, trying to share whatever warmth I had left. The storm screamed just outside, but inside the crevice, we were still. Two strangers in the dark, clinging to the smallest thread of life. Then, just barely, I felt at her fingers twitching against mine. And she didn't pull away. The crevice groaned under the weight of the storm pressing in from all sides. Snow hissed as it slammed against the rock, each gust sounding like a voice trying to get in, angry, wild, hungry. I didn't sleep that first night. I couldn't. My body was numb from the cold, despite the slight insulation the walls offered. My muscles were aching from how tightly I held Zyra, afraid she'd slip away if I let go. Her skin had begun to warm slightly, but she was still too quiet, too. Still, at some point in the night, she stirred. "Why? Help me?" she whispered, her voice so faint I almost thought it was a dream. "Because you're alive," I said, barely above a whisper myself, "and I wasn't going to leave anyone behind, not even you." "Even me?" she repeated, like the words confused her. Then silence again. When dawn came, it wasn't the warmth of sun that greeted us, but a dim gray haze like the world itself had forgotten how to shine. I carefully peeled myself away, my limbs screaming in protest. Zyra winced as I helped her sit up. The wound at her side still oozed dark blue, crusting along the edge of her rib cage. I tore a strip from my inner shirt and did what I could. She hissed at the pressure, but didn't pull away. That was new. We need to find better shelter, I said. This isn't going to hold if the storm shifts again. She didn't argue. She just nodded, slow and stiff, like every movement had to be considered carefully. I hoisted her arm over my shoulder, and we hobbled out into the white world. The snow was waist-deep, the wind lower now but still cruel. Our visibility was only a few meters in any direction. The shuttle wreck was nowhere in sight anymore. For all we knew, it had been buried completely. Zyra looked up toward the sky and muttered something in her language. A prayer, maybe, or a curse. Then, behind a sharp ridge of stone, we found a fissure in the ice, almost invisible unless you were standing right above it. I nearly missed it, but Zyra's foot slipped, and I caught her just in time. I knelt and brushed snow aside, revealing a jagged opening. Think it's safe? I asked. She gave a tired smile, something too weak to be confident. Nothing on this planet is safe. Still, we climbed down. Inside, it was dark and narrow, a tunnel formed by ancient glacial shifts. The air was stagnant but warmer, much warmer. Steam curled from cracks along the wall geothermal vents. Pure luck, maybe fate. I didn't care. I just helped her down and settled us into a natural alcove. Close to one of the vents, we ate the first of our rations, compressed protein bars designed to taste like cardboard, dipped in salt. Zyra examined hers with distaste but said nothing. I laughed. This is what we call gourmet, I joked. She looked at me. Her eyes, wide and violet, narrowed. You joke in the face of death? Helps me forget I'm freezing, I said. What do you do in the face of death? I observe. I calculate. Her voice was steady now, controlled, and when necessary. I change. That caught me off guard. I tilted my head. Is that what you're doing now? Changing? She didn't answer. Hours passed. I dozed on and off, waking each time the wind howled through a crack in the stone. Zyra didn't sleep. Her eyes flicked constantly, watching shadows as if expecting them to move. I finally asked her why she joined our mission. Because my people do not trust your people, she said plainly. But I wanted to see for myself what kind of creature you were. I expected arrogance, ego, violence. I raised a brow. And now? She hesitated. Then said, you gave me your warmth. And that changed your mind? No, she said, eyes narrowing. But it changed something. We fell silent after that. Not out of tension, but because the silence between us wasn't empty anymore. Then metal. A sharp screech in the distance. I froze. Zyra did too. That's not the wind, I whispered. No, she said, already pulling herself up against the wall, injury forgotten for the moment. That was machinery. The echo repeated, louder now, closer. Hope surged. In my chest. Rescue drone? But Zyra didn't smile. Her expression grew darker, or worse. My heart raced. I reached for the emergency flare in my gear, the only signal we had left. Then came another sound. Not a screech this time, but something deeper, rhythmic, mechanical footsteps. Several of them. Above us, I turned to Zyra, who had gone pale. Her fingers trembling. You know that sound, she nodded. It's not from your side, or mine. Something moved at the mouth of the fissure above us. A shadow, tall and insectal, gliding with unnatural smoothness. We weren't alone on Aegis 9, and whatever had found us wasn't here to help. The sound haunted the wall's metal scraping ice, slow and deliberate, like a blade dragging across bone. We crouched deeper into the alcove, barely breathing. Zyra's hand clutched my forearm with surprising strength for someone who had been half dead just hours ago. Her skin was warmer now, but her eyes were colder than I'd ever seen. Focused, calculating. What is it? I whispered, lips barely moving. Her reply was low like a breath of frost. Old tech. Not human, not mine. I've only heard of it. In archives, autonomous harvesters. Machines left behind from an abandoned civilization or something worse. A loud hiss cut through the cavern as vents along the ceiling burst, scattering steam and mist into the air. The sound of footsteps or whatever approximated footsteps grew sharper, metallic claws clinking on ice. The light from my suit's beacon danced wildly on the cave walls as I reached instinctively for my sidearm. Standard issue. Weak pulse bursts. Not built to stop armored threats. Zyra pressed her palm to the rock and murmured words in her native tongue. The wall responded barely. A faint shimmer flickered across its surface like static on a glass screen. I stared, confused. What did you do? I asked. It's a shielding frequency, a resonance trick. Very old, but it might distort our heat signatures, she said without looking at me. If the machine's sensors are as primitive as its age suggests, it could buy us time. I stared at her for a long moment. You're more than a diplomat. She didn't answer. We stayed frozen in the alcove for what felt like hours, listening to the creature or machine move above. U.S. dragging something heavy. At one point, it paused directly above our hiding spot. The sound of mechanical breathing, deep, processed, artificial, filtered through the layers of ice. Zyra reached up and gently covered my mouth. Not to silence me, just to feel my breath. To gauge how calm I was, or wasn't. Finally, it moved on. Faint vibrations faded into silence. But neither of us relaxed. When we dared emerge, the light filtering through the tunnel ceiling had changed. Aegis 9's twin suns were low, casting eerie blue light across the icy landscape. The snow shimmered like crushed glass. Above the fissure, etched into the snow in near-perfect symmetry, were deep triangular tracks too clean, too regular to be natural. Zyra stepped closer to the edge. It's patrolling, searching. For us? I asked. For anything living, she replied, or warm. We retreated deeper into the cave system, moving slowly, using hand signals more than words. Every echo was a threat. Every shadow, a trap. The geothermal heat grew stronger the further we descended, until we reached a chamber that looked wrong. It was spherical, unnaturally smooth, with no ice crystals on the walls. A symbol was carved into the center, something not in any language. I recognized. Zyra's eyes narrowed. She stepped toward it, hesitated, then turned to me. This isn't just an abandoned planet, she said. It's a memory. What does that mean? Her hand trembled as she touched the symbol. The chamber responded immediately. Light pulsed from the carving, washing over her skin in delicate waves. The rock beneath us shivered alive, aware. Zyra staggered backward. What happened? I said, grabbing her arm. I saw it, she whispered. This place, before the snow, before the storm. It was a vault, a sanctuary, a laboratory, until they came. They? My heart pounded louder than my thoughts. They called themselves the Gatherers, machines that consume biology. They don't harvest energy. They harvest potential. I felt sick. And they're still here? Zyra didn't answer. We decided to rest for a while in the chamber. The heat was stable. The cave ceiling high enough not to feel suffocating. She slept curled against me, her back warm now, her breathing steady. I kept watch, fingers tight around my sidearm. Eyes fixed on the entrance. At some point, I found myself tracing the symbol on the floor. The stone pulsed under my touch, but this time, it didn't light up. Only when Zyra stirred again did she speak. Her voice cracked from sleep. It responded to me because of my blood, she said. What does that mean? She met my gaze. My people were here before, a long time ago. We helped build this place. You're saying this planet? It's connected to your species? She nodded. And the gatherers came after us. When we tried to fight them, we failed. So, we locked this world and left. And now we've unlocked it again. Yes, she said, her tone heavy. And now, they remember. A distant echo metal on ice rippled through the tunnels once more. They're coming back. We weren't just trapped anymore. We had awakened something ancient, something that had waited in silence for centuries, and it was no longer sleeping. The third night in the caves was the worst. Zyra had stopped talking, not from anger or withdrawal, but from exhaustion. Her body, still healing, was beginning to tremble again. We'd moved deeper into the subterranean tunnels to avoid the patrols. Above, but in doing so, we'd slipped into something far more dangerous. The geothermal heat was fading. The walls were starting to frost. The tiny chamber we had made into a temporary home now felt like a tomb. I tried everything, wrapped Zyra in both emergency blankets, activated the last heat cell in my suit, even rubbed her hands and arms until mine were raw but her skin remained too cold, and her breathing was too shallow. "Don't you dare," I whispered, gripping her hand. "You made it through the storm. You made it through me. This isn't where we end." Her eyes fluttered open for just a moment. "It's not death I fear," she said. "It's waking alone." "I'm not going anywhere," I said, pressing my forehead to hers. That was when we heard it. A sound that made both of us freeze in place. Click, click. Not the mechanical grinding from before. Not the heavy footsteps of a machine. This was lighter, faster, like claws tapping against stone. Zyra's hand tightened on mine. "That's not a gatherer." The sound echoed through the tunnels closer now. My head turned toward the narrow passage that led to our alcove. A shape darted past, just at the edge of the light from my wrist beacon. Too fast to track. Too quiet for a machine. I grabbed my sidearm and stood. "Stay here." Zyra tried to stop me. "No, don't separate." But I was already moving, slow and silent, each step echoing against walls carved long before we were born. The air was heavier here, metallic, as if something ancient was breathing just ahead. Then I saw it. Eyes, dozens of them, reflecting light like shattered glass. Crouched along the upper wall like a spider, a creature clung to the stone. Its skin was translucent, stretched over a shifting frame of muscle and bone. No armor, no metal. Organic. It hissed when I pointed my weapon. Then it spoke. "Warmth," it rasped. Not in English, not in Zyra's language. Something else, but I understood it all the same. Like it whispered directly into my nervous system. "Warmth. Draws the hungers." I fired. The bolt missed. The creature skittered backward, vanishing into darkness. I sprinted back to Zyra, breath ragged. We're not alone. She was already standing, her posture rigid. "That was a vault wraith." "What?" "My ancestors left behind protectors, twisted by time. They weren't meant to survive centuries, but some did." "That thing what? Did it want?" She looked me in the eye. "It wanted what all old things want, to remember, to feed, to feel alive again." The chamber ceiling began to hum, a low vibration, almost musical. The symbol Zyra had touched earlier flared again, pulsing like a heartbeat. I watched her eyes go wide. "I don't understand," I said. "What is it doing?" "It's not doing anything," she said slowly. "You activated it." "What?" She pointed to the floor. "I thought it responded to me because of my blood. But it's not my lineage the vault recognizes anymore." "It's yours." I took a step back. "That doesn't make sense." "I'm human. Maybe you're more than that," she said. "Maybe your ancestors weren't as far removed from ours as we thought." Another hum. This time deeper, resonant. A thin slit opened in the back wall of the chamber, revealing a staircase made of smooth black stone descending into pitch darkness. A place no scanner could read. A place no modern being had walked in ages. Zyra looked at me, fear and wonder blending across her face. We're being called. I stared into the black void of the stairwell. You think there's an answer down there? No, she whispered. But there may be a truth. I didn't want truth. I wanted sunlight. I wanted warmth. I wanted out. But I also knew something had changed. The vault had awakened. The wraiths were stirring. And Zyra and I were more than survivors now. We were part of the story buried in this world. As we descended the stairs, the stone behind us sealed shut, trapping the last of the surface light behind a perfect black wall. Whatever waited below wanted no witnesses. The air changed the moment the stairwell closed behind us. It wasn't just colder, it was heavier, thicker, like the atmosphere itself carried memory. Each step downward felt like descending into something ancient and deliberate. My boots scuffed. The obsidian black stone, but the sound didn't echo. It was absorbed, swallowed by the darkness like even sound wasn't allowed to escape. Zyra walked just ahead of me, one hand gliding along the smooth wall, her other arm tucked close to her. Wounded sighed. I could see her breath in the air now, a soft cloud of mist that pulsed with every step. Her violet eyes were narrowed, her expression unreadable. She didn't speak, but I could feel her thoughts churning like a storm under her skin. How far does this go? I asked finally, my voice a whisper I wasn't even sure was mine. She shook her head. Farther than it should. The stairs ended in a vast chamber that lit up as we stepped inside. Lines of pale bioluminescent light traced across the floor like veins, illuminating strange symbols and constellations that shifted slowly, alive beneath the stone. The walls pulsed in gentle waves, light moving like breath. Ahead of us, a structure rose from the floor, a throne, but not one made for any living being I could imagine. It was tall, spindly, formed of layered crystal and organic bone, twisting upward like a tree that had grown under pressure and never stopped. Something moved. Inside the throne, not a person, not a machine, something else. I feel it, Zyra whispered, staring at the structure. It remembers me, or at least, it remembers my kind. I reached out instinctively, and as soon as my fingers brushed the base of the structure, the entire room lit up. The ceiling, previously invisible, was suddenly alive with glowing constellations, memories, holographic imprints, images of worlds I had never seen, cities made of light, towering beings that walked through fire, then darkness, always followed by darkness. The gatherers. The memories didn't play like a recording. They invaded, flooded, pressed against the backs of my eyes until I staggered. A vision struck me. Zyra, but not as she was now. She was regal, cloaked in living fabric, surrounded by beings who bowed before her. And then, a blast. A storm of machines descending from space. Screams in a language I didn't know but felt in my bones. I snapped back to the present, gasping, eyes wide. Zyra was staring at me. You saw it, I nodded, breathless. All of it. What is this place? A remembrance chamber, she said. A way for the vault to store its truths. But you shouldn't be able to see those memories. Why not? She stepped closer. Because you're not one of us. My pulse was racing now. Then why did it show me? Zyra looked at the throne, then back at me, her voice low. Because you're something new. You carry echoes of us, and of something else. Something the vault hasn't cataloged before. I backed away, shaken. You're saying this thing chose me? She stepped into my path, eyes fierce. I'm saying the vault might need you. Before I could answer, the walls trembled. The floor cracked in a spiral around the throne. From every fissure, a mist rose thick, greenish, and humming. The room responded with a single resonant sound. A tone so low it vibrated my spine. Zyra's eyes widened. It's waking the wraiths. Why? Because we're here. Above us, a circular aperture opened in the ceiling, revealing not sky, but another chamber higher, colder, lined with spires that looked like broken bones. From it descended a shape I recognized immediately, one of the creatures from before. But this one was larger, older. Its body shimmered with half-buried armor. And in its chest, something pulsed, a shard of the same light we had seen in the throne. It has part of the vault, Zyra said. They fused with the memories. The wraith didn't attack. It watched. Then it spoke not in a language. But through the light that flashed across the walls, the floor, even Zyra's skin, it asked a question. Zyra fell to her knees. What did it say? I asked, heart hammering. She looked up at me, stunned. It asked if you remember your name. My name? I repeated, confused. Not the one you were given, she said slowly. The one you were born with, in them. In the first ones. The builders. I began, but then a sharp pain stabbed behind my eyes. Another vision. A different world. A war. A last stand. A promise made in blood and fire. When I opened my eyes, Zyra was holding my shoulders. You said something just now in the old tongue. I didn't mean to. But you did, she whispered. You remembered. The throne glowed again. This time, it didn't show images of the past. It showed us standing in that chamber. Her hand on mine. The child between us, violet-eyed, silver-skinned, smiling. A vision of a future that hadn't happened yet. Or might. The light flared, then vanished. Silence fell again. But something had changed. In me. In her. In the vault. We weren't just survivors anymore. We were the inheritors of a forgotten legacy. And the vault had chosen us to finish what the builders began. The surface was no longer home. When we finally emerged from the underground vault, the storm had passed. The sky above Aegis 9 was a cold, crystalline blue, cracked by the twin suns hanging low like frozen eyes. What struck me most was the silence. Not the kind that comes from peace, but the kind that follows after something enormous has moved through and left the world changed. Snow blanketed everything. The remains of the shuttle were gone, buried completely. No sign of our crew. Visible wreckage. Even the trail we had carved days before wiped clean. As if we had never existed up here at all, Zyra stood beside me, her hand resting against the side of my neck, fingers tracing my pulse like she was confirming I was still real. We hadn't spoken much since the vault. The vision still echoed. In my skull names I didn't remember, words I hadn't learned, languages I somehow knew. Her presence kept me grounded. She'd seen them too, but now something else was wrong. The beacon we had left in the fissure, the one we had primed for any rescue team, it was shattered. Not broken, pulverized, as if something had crushed it deliberately. They know where. Awake, Zyra whispered. Her eyes scanned the distant ridgelines, searching for movement. Who? I asked, though I already knew. The gatherers. Their sentience is fractured, but not gone. They were never just machines. They were algorithms seeded with hunger and memory. I looked around. We need to move. Get higher ground. If we're going to send a signal again, Zyra grabbed my arm. Wait. A low vibration rippled through the snow beneath our feet. We dropped to a crouch instinctively. From the eastern cliff, a sleek, bird-like drone shot through the air, black, fast, silent. It passed over us without slowing, but it wasn't a rescue drone. It bore the tri-pronged symbol I had seen inside the vault, carved in stone. It wasn't human. It wasn't hers either. They're scanning for us, Zyra said. Not to rescue, to retrieve. The memory burned in my chest. You remember your name. Whatever that thing in the vault had seen in me. So had they. We fled north toward the old communications tower that had once served as a relay hub for orbital missions. It was barely functioning now, most of its structure sheared away by ice storms and neglect. But we were out of options. Ours passed like breaths underwater, blurred, cold, disoriented. Zyra barely spoke. Her skin was flushed silver under the suns. Something in her had changed too. Not just from the cold, not from fear. She was moving differently, like her limbs remembered something older than her training. When we reached the tower, I climbed the twisted scaffolding to access the backup transmitter core. By some miracle, its solar capacitor still held a charge. I linked my personal beacon and activated a manual distress call, but something interrupted it. The screen pulsed red, then white, a message, not in English, not in any alphabet I knew. But I understood it. Do not call them. They will not save you. You are already claimed. I stared at the words, breath shallow. Zyra climbed up beside me and saw the message. Her face tightened. It's them. I don't belong to anyone, I snapped. She looked at me. You carry their imprint now. You touched the vault. It touched you back. I powered off the terminal. My heart pounded in my ears. Then we burn it down, all of it. We bury this thing. Zyra touched my chest. No, it's too late. The vault awakened not because of you, but because it recognized your echo. You're the signal. Not the receiver. My head spun. What does that even mean? She took a deep breath, her voice trembling but firm. You asked me once why I was on this mission. I lied. I wasn't assigned to observe. I was sent to find a convergence point. A hybrid, a living key. I stared at her. You knew this could happen. I knew it had to. She looked away, shame in her eyes. But I didn't expect to care. Not like this. Not about you. I stepped back, words caught in my throat. Suddenly the snow below the tower shifted. The same spider-like wraith from the vault rose from the ground, this one taller, bearing a staff of obsidian fused with crystal. It didn't attack. It bowed. And then it spoke in a deep, guttural tone that shook the air. He is remembered. Zyra dropped to one knee instinctively. I didn't move. The wraith continued. The heir of pulse, the one whose warmth endures. My voice came out cracked. I'm not your heir. I'm just a technician. I fix broken weather relays. The wraith tilted its head. You fixed what was never meant to break. You touched the living root. The vault accepts you. Zyra stood again, her eyes shimmering. That's why it showed us a future. The child. The peace. It wasn't a fantasy. It was a path. The wraith stepped forward and held out a shard of light glowing, humming like a heartbeat. I reached for it. Zyra grabbed my wrist. If you take it, nothing stays the same. Not you. Not me. Not Earth. My fingers trembled. I don't want. Destiny, I whispered. Zyra's voice was steady. Then make a choice. I looked at her, this brilliant, otherworldly woman who had once shivered in my arms under a storm. I saw not an alien, not a diplomat, but a soul that had chosen me when she didn't have to, and I reached out. My fingers closed around the shard. Light exploded outward, not destructive, but transformative. It poured into my skin, my bones, my memories. I saw Zyra's people building the vault. I saw my own ancestors walking side by side with them. I saw gatherers burning worlds. I saw love bridging what war never could. And in that moment, I knew. My name, not the one given on earth, the one the stars had waited to speak again. The sky changed the moment I took the shard. Not visually, not yet, but I felt it. The suns above Aegis 9 pulsed once, like distant heartbeats sinking to mine. The wind stopped screaming. The storm, the dread, the buried death beneath the snow, everything paused. I looked at my hand, the shard now fused into my palm, its glow sinking into my veins like liquid memory. Zyra stared at me, stunned, not afraid, not reverent. "Just still. You remember," she said, voice barely more than breath. "I do," I replied. "But not all of it, only pieces." She stepped toward me. "That's more than any of us ever dared." The wraith, still bowed beside us, slowly rose. Its voice echoed again, not with words, but with meaning, pouring into the air like a storm. Of silent sound, the air of pulse is awakened. The guardian's blood answers. The vault opens fully. I blinked, stunned. What does it mean by guardian's blood? Zyra didn't answer immediately. Her eyes shone silver blue under the twin suns. Then, softly, she said, "It means me, my line, my people. We were bred to protect the vault's memory until the one who could open it arrived." "You were bred to protect it," I repeated. "Not open it." Her gaze faltered just for a second. "They feared corruption. The gatherers taught us that memory alone is dangerous." A chill ran through me, colder than the wind. "So they never wanted the vault opened?" "No," she said, "but some of us hoped." Suddenly, the ground trembled again this time. Deeper, not just a tremor. A summons. The wraith turned and began to walk, vanishing into the snow without a sound. "Where is it going?" I asked. Zyra's voice was grave. "To the conduit. The core of the vault. The final memory." "And we follow?" "If we don't," she said, "someone else will." We left the shattered tower behind, crossing a silent tundra lit by fractured sunlight. As we walked, I could feel the world watching. Beneath the snow and stone, ancient circuits whispered. The planet wasn't dead. It was waiting. The vault was no longer a tomb. It was a voice, and it had found its speaker. Hours passed in silence. We crested the final ridge, and there it was, the conduit, not a building, not a beacon, a living storm of light and geometry, hovering above a lake of ice that hadn't cracked in millennia. It spun slowly in the air, shifting between solid and spectral, its core a spiraling orb of violet and white. Dozens of wraiths stood at the edge, kneeling, watching. Zyra, and I stepped forward. Then the conduit spoke. "What do you carry?" The voice shattered my thoughts, deeper than language, louder than thunder, softer than sorrow. "I carry memory," I answered. "Memory alone corrupts. I carry love. Love alone breaks." "I carry both." The wind rose. The sky dimmed. "Then you are ready." The lake cracked, not shattered, just a perfect, slow spiral fracture. From beneath it, something rose. A pod. No, a sarcophagus. And in it, a body. Human. But not tall. Pale, silver-veined. Its eyes opened as we approached, bright violet, like Zyra's. It didn't breathe. It didn't speak. It just watched. Zyra gasped. "That's impossible." I stared at the figure. It stared back, and I understood. "That's me," I whispered, "or who I was. Before the conduit flared, you are the continuation, the branch from the broken root." Zyra stepped closer. "He's you, but not in this time?" A sealed echo, a backup soul. "The first to bond with my people. The first human who tried to stop the gatherers and failed." I reached out, touched the sarcophagus. In an instant, I saw it all. The war, the betrayal, the broken alliance between species, the creation of the vault to store what must never be forgotten, and the child who survived my genetic seed, passed down, muted, hidden, until it found me. When I pulled my hand back, the image faded. Zyra stood still, her lips trembling. "What happens now?" I turned to her. The vault doesn't need a guard anymore. It needs a voice. And the gatherers? They're coming, I said, drawn by activation. But they'll find us waiting. Alone? She asked. No, I said, reaching for her hand. Together. She stepped close, rested her forehead against mine. The conduit pulsed again, and then it poured into us. Not just warmth, knowledge, languages I'd never known, technology lost to time, songs that shaped stars. We saw it all, shared it all. And in that light, we weren't alien and human. We were one. The vault had been opened, not to release horror. But to ignite hope. Years passed. On the orbital station above Earth, Zyra and I lived quietly, away from headlines and politics. We raised a daughter, hers and mine, in every way that mattered. Her skin shimmered like moonlight. Her eyes flickered like galaxies. She sang to flowers and made them bloom. We taught her how to dream. Sometimes Zyra would whisper that same word, in her native tongue, the one that meant soul warmth. The one she first used when she offered me that delicate necklace made of starlight threads. Husband, she'd say softly, curling against me under painted ceilings in indoor rain, and I'd answer, voice steady with a memory that spanned lifetimes. Wife. I never intended to love her. I only meant to survive. But in that frozen crevice, with her trembling in my arms, I started a story older than both of us, a story that will never be forgotten.